Welcome to InvestIQ, the place where we dive deep into the numbers and strategies that power smart investing. Today, we're embarking on a really fascinating exploration tailored just for you, adaptive reuse. You've been looking into ways to maybe get involved in this growing area, and well, we've gathered a stack of insights to help you get started. Think of this as your personalized blueprint, sort of, for understanding the world of breathing new life into old buildings.
That's right. We've looked at, well, pretty much everything from the strategic advantages to, the potential pitfalls. We've drawn from guides for investors, analyses of housing needs, and even some successful project examples. Our mission today really is to distill the key nuggets of information you need if you're thinking about venturing into adaptive reuse.
Yeah, we'll unpack what adaptive reuse really means, why it seems to be gaining so much traction lately, and some crucial steps to consider. Now, before we jump in, a quick but important note, okay? Yeah. The information we discuss today is purely for informational purposes. It should definitely not be considered investment advice. Always conduct your own thorough research and consult with financial professionals before making any investment decisions. Okay, right, let's unpack this. So what exactly are we talking about when we say adaptive reuse?
Okay, so at its heart, adaptive reuse is really about taking an existing building and giving it a new purpose, something different than what it was originally designed for. Imagine turning an old, maybe empty factory into these stylish loft apartments.
Right.
Or transforming a forgotten warehouse into a vibrant hub of modern offices. Or even reimagining a historic site as a unique boutique hotel.
It sounds like it's definitely more than just a passing trend. It feels like it's tapping into something, well, more fundamental about how we view buildings and communities.
Absolutely. And the sources we've looked at really underline that. Adaptive reuse isn't just about finding a new use for an old space. It's really about unlocking hidden potential, adding value in ways you might not immediately see.
And it's not just about the financials, is it?
Mm-hmm.
One thing that keeps popping up is this idea of preserving cultural heritage.
That's a really significant point. By choosing to adapt an existing building, you're often playing a part in preserving a community's history, its architectural character. Instead of just, demolishing and starting fresh, you're finding a way to weave the past into the present, into the fabric of a place.
Which ties straight into the sustainability angle, right? Just seems so much more environmentally sound than building from scratch.
Precisely. Yeah, our sources highlight that. Adaptive reuse is a really powerful tool for sustainable development. By repurposing existing structures, you're significantly cutting down the demand for new building materials, minimizing construction waste, and you're leveraging the embodied energy. Think of that as the energy footprint already locked into the building's construction that's already there.
Which is a stark contrast to ground-up construction, which, well, it needs a ton of energy and resources.
So for someone like you, listening in, who's considering getting into this, what are the key strategic advantages? What makes adaptive reuse attractive, investment-wise?
Well, one of the most compelling ones is the potential for cost savings, especially compared to starting a project from, the ground up. Through creative redesign and thoughtful planning, revitalizing an existing structure can often be more economical. In fact, some analyses we saw suggest projects can see cost reductions of maybe up to 20–30% just in material costs alone, especially if you can really use the existing structural framework.
Wow, that kind of saving, that can really impact the bottom line. And it seems like those projects might also move a bit faster sometimes.
That's another potential plus, yeah. Faster project timelines are often achievable precisely because you're working with an existing structure. You're not dealing with those initial phases like site prep and laying foundations, which can save quite a bit of time. And a lot of these older buildings, they're already in established locations, aren't they? Which comes with its own set of perks.
Exactly. Adaptive reuse projects often benefit from infrastructure that's already there. Things like roads, utilities, maybe access to public transport. It's all in place.
Yeah.
That can be a huge leg up compared to developing on, say, a greenfield site. And being in a prime location, that can often lead to a quicker return on your investment.
It's also mentioned, I noticed, that there's a certain inherent appeal, a charm, to older buildings. That must be a draw for tenants or buyers, right?
Oh, it certainly can be. A lot of people are drawn to that unique aesthetic, the historical significance of older buildings, especially when they're thoughtfully updated with all the modern amenities. That blend, historical character and modern comfort, that can be a really powerful selling point.
Okay, now one area that seems absolutely critical for anyone looking into this is understanding the regulatory landscape. Sounds like it could be a potential minefield.
It's definitely a vital area to get your head around. Understanding local zoning laws, building codes, any historic preservation rules, it's paramount. These regulations can significantly impact the feasibility, the timeline, and, well, ultimately the cost of your project.
So it sounds like maybe step number one is getting in touch with the local authorities, like right away.
Absolutely. Our sources really stress the importance of engaging with local authorities, any relevant preservation agencies right from the very beginning. The planning stage, being proactive, understanding their requirements up front, that can save you significant headaches, potential roadblocks later on. Trust me.
Building codes are obviously huge. The International Existing Building Code, the IEBC, that kept popping up in our research. What's the story there?
Yeah, the IEBC is a really fundamental resource for these kinds of projects. It's been adopted in many places, and it basically provides a framework for how to safely and cost-effectively repurpose existing buildings. What's interesting is that the IEBC offers different ways to comply. There's the prescriptive method, the work area method, and the performance method.
Okay, different paths.
Right. The prescriptive is kind of straightforward, rule-based, good for simpler jobs. The work area focuses on the scope of work, allowing targeted upgrades, and the performance method. That gives you more flexibility. It lets designers show code compliance through engineering analysis. It basically acknowledges you're not starting with a blank slate.
It sounds like it offers some wiggle room, recognizing that adapting an old building isn't the same as building new.
Exactly. But keep in mind, if you're changing the building's occupancy, say, from commercial offices to residential apartments, you absolutely need to meet the specific code requirements for that new use. Things like ensuring proper cooking facilities, sanitation, fire safety for residential. It's non-negotiable.
Okay, so let's say you've navigated the regulatory maze, or at least started to. How do you actually go about picking the right property for an adaptive reuse project? What are the key things to look for?
Several key factors come into play here. Location, well, that's always paramount in real estate, right? No different here. The historical significance of a property can also be a major draw. And critically, you need to thoroughly assess the feasibility. Can you actually repurpose the structure for your intended new use?
It sounds like due diligence becomes even more important with existing buildings, like supercharged due diligence.
Absolutely. Thorough due diligence is essential. This means a deep dive into the structural integrity, any hidden foundation issues. You also need to evaluate potential environmental concerns, maybe asbestos or lead paint, and identify any potential redevelopment challenges early on, really early.
And you have to think about the neighborhood itself too, right? Will the surrounding area actually support your vision?
Exactly. You have to consider if the neighborhood can support the new use. If you're converting commercial to apartments, are there enough amenities nearby? Grocery stores, parks, schools, things residents need.
Good point.
Also, our sources point out, the physical characteristics matter. A really small parcel of land might just not be suitable for a large multifamily housing project, for instance.
This definitely doesn't sound like something you should tackle alone. The sources really emphasize working with experienced professionals.
That's absolutely right. Engaging architects, engineers, contractors who have a strong, proven track record, specifically in adaptive reuse, it's invaluable. Their expertise is crucial for understanding the unique challenges, the opportunities of existing structures, preserving their integrity while making sure they meet the new functional needs.
Now let's zoom out a bit. Why is adaptive reuse becoming such a hot topic right now? We've touched on sustainability, but what else is driving this?
Well, that increasing emphasis on sustainability in real estate is definitely a major factor. Like we said, the environmental benefits are pretty significant. But beyond that, adaptive reuse is playing a really key role in revitalizing underdeveloped urban areas. These projects can be a real catalyst for community redevelopment. They can attract new businesses, create jobs, boost the local economy. It's a ripple effect.
And it's also being seen as a potential way to tackle the growing housing shortage in many cities, isn't it?
That's a huge driver right now. Converting underused commercial properties, think older office buildings may be struggling with remote work trends, or underperforming hotels in good locations, turning those into residential units is being seriously looked at. It's seen as a viable solution to address housing shortfalls. Plus, like we mentioned, you often get to preserve unique architectural details and that sense of community history.
And there are even government initiatives starting to pop up to encourage these kinds of conversions.
Yes, there's definitely growing recognition at various levels of government about the potential here. For example, there have been initiatives aimed at providing financing, technical assistance specifically for commercial to residential conversions. That support just underscores the growing momentum. Sectors like retail, hit hard by online shopping, and those older, maybe Class B or C office spaces, they're increasingly seen as prime candidates. We're even seeing data suggesting a significant uptick, a record number actually, of apartment generating conversions currently underway.
Wow. It sounds like a world of opportunity, but
Hmm.
surely there are some significant hurdles to overcome, too. It can't all be smooth sailing.
Oh, absolutely not. While the potential is huge, adaptive reuse projects definitely come with their own unique set of challenges. Regulatory hurdles, as we've discussed, can be substantial, especially if you're dealing with historically designated buildings or trying to navigate complex, maybe outdated zoning laws. This often requires a lot of collaboration, careful negotiation with local authorities. It takes time.
And I can imagine costs being a real wild card with older buildings. You don't always know what's behind the walls.
That's a major, major consideration. Unpredictable costs are a common challenge. You might uncover hidden issues, asbestos, structural problems you didn't see initially, outdated electrical or plumbing systems.
Yep.
Thorough inspections are key, but even then, having a robust contingency budget is absolutely crucial. You
Wow.
need that buffer.
And the whole process of changing the zoning, say from commercial to residential, that sounds like it could be a real sticking point, a bottleneck.
It often is. Rezoning requires a really deep understanding of local ordinances, both city and maybe county level. The process itself can involve submitting detailed applications, potentially facing opposition from neighbors, attending public meetings, getting approval from the legislative body.
Sounds lengthy.
It can be weeks, sometimes months. It really varies place by place.
And then there are the actual physical renovations needed just to bring a commercial space up to residential building codes. That can't be cheap.
Exactly. Renovations to meet residential codes, electrical, plumbing, fire safety, ensuring proper entry and exit points, those costs can be substantial. You might also need to make changes to the exterior layout, maybe improve traffic flow, make it feel more residential. And depending on the zoning, there might be density regulations limiting how many apartments you can even create based on the building's size.
And accessibility is something you absolutely have to factor in, right?
Yeah.
ADA compliance and all that.
Absolutely critical. Meeting accessibility requirements like the Americans with Disabilities Act, ADA, and local codes often requires significant renovations. Accessible routes, entrances, a certain number of accessible units, plus energy codes are always evolving. A conversion might trigger new environmental obligations you need to meet. Oh, and don't forget labor considerations, especially if you're dealing with a property like a former unionized hotel. That adds another layer.
Okay, so despite all these challenges, it sounds like there's some really compelling examples of successful projects out there. People are making it work.
Oh, definitely. The trend of converting underperforming offices and hotels into multifamily communities is really gaining traction. It's driven by those shifts in how we work and travel. Older office properties, particularly those built, say, before 1990, maybe under 15,000 square feet, they often make good candidates for apartment conversions. And hotels in desirable spots with unique architecture, those can be successfully reimagined for residential use, too.
We saw a few specific case studies mention Park and Ford, Part 6180 Water Street, both offices that became multifamily residences, right?
Yes, and there was the Hilton JFK Airport, which was transformed into affordable housing,
Hmm.
the Spoke at McCullough Station, another office to multifamily example, and Buena Esperanza, a motel converted into affordable housing.
That shows the range.
It really does. These examples showcase the variety and the potential. And remember, it's not just buildings. We're seeing it with infrastructure, too. Think about the High Line in New York City or the 11th Street Bridge Park in D.C. That's underutilized infrastructure being repurposed for public benefit. Even things like temporary pop-up shops or pilot programs. You could argue that's a form of adaptive reuse, activating empty spaces.
Interesting point. Let's talk a bit more about the money side, the financial aspect. Is adaptive reuse generally a financially sound strategy? What do the numbers suggest?
Well, the information we've looked at suggests it can offer a strong return on investment, potentially outperforming new construction. That's often due to lower initial acquisition costs. And in some areas, the availability of tax incentives or credits specifically for reuse or historic preservation. However, given the complexities we've talked about, those potential unexpected costs, having flexible financing solutions is often crucial.
Right. What kind of financing options are typically used for these types of projects? Is it different from standard construction loans?
It can be. Options like bridge loans are common. They help cover costs during that initial acquisition and pre-development phase. Mezzanine financing can also help fill gaps in the funding package. Phase-based funding is another strategy. Funds get released as you hit specific project milestones. And interest-only periods during the renovation phase can really help manage cash flow when you're not generating income yet.
Makes sense.
And it's definitely worth investigating potential tax abatements, tax credits, maybe regulatory reforms that some cities and states offer to incentivize adaptive reuse, especially for projects including affordable housing. But bottom line, robust cost management, detailed budgets, and healthy contingencies for surprises are absolutely essential. And like we touched on with professionals, finding a financing partner who gets adaptive reuse, who has experience with its unique challenges, can be a significant advantage.
Okay, so finally, for someone listening who's seriously considering converting a commercial property to residential, what are some of your top tips distilled from everything we've looked at?
All right, based on what we've gathered, several key tips really stand out. First, conduct a very thorough site assessment and feasibility study. Really understand the property's potential and its pitfalls. Second, meticulously analyze all potential renovation costs. Be realistic and definitely factor in those contingencies we mentioned. Third, thoroughly understand and prepare to navigate the zoning change process. It's often complex. Fourth, carefully consider the exterior layout and the accessibility needs of future residents. How will it function day to day? Fifth, don't rush the renovation. Prioritize health and safety at every single stage. Sixth, look for opportunities to leverage any unique or interesting existing features of the commercial property. Lean into the character. And finally, number seven, think carefully about things like natural light and creating appealing common areas. Those details really enhance the residential experience and make it more marketable. So, as you can hopefully see, the world of adaptive reuse, it really offers this compelling intersection. Investment opportunity, yes, but also the chance to contribute positively to community revitalization. It definitely requires careful planning, a solid grasp of regulations, a strategic approach to finding the right property and financing, but the potential rewards, both financial and social, can be substantial.
Exactly. By strategically identifying those right properties, navigating the process thoughtfully, and bringing in the right expertise, you can play a really vital role, breathing new life into communities, creating innovative, much-needed spaces. We really hope this deep dive has provided a solid foundation for your exploration into adaptive reuse.
Yeah, what stands out to you, and maybe the most interesting aspect, or perhaps the most challenging part of adaptive reuse that we've talked about today? We really encourage you to delve deeper, look into the resources we touched on, and definitely connect with professionals in your local area, people who have direct, hands-on experience with these fascinating projects.
And that wraps up your personalized deep dive into adaptive reuse for today. If you have more questions or maybe specific scenarios you'd like us to explore in future discussions, please don't hesitate to reach out. Thanks for tuning in to InvestIQ.